It's time now for a wrap of what's making the front pages of the world press. And for that, I'm joined by Elena Casas. Good morning to you, Elena. And I gather we're going to start in the United States, where the media are digesting, say, that Republican debate a couple of hours ago that's got everyone talking about who's going to be facing Barack Obama in the polls next year.
Well, the media all agree it's down to a two-horse race between Mitt Romney and Rick Perry. But let's look first at a piece that's on the front page of today's New York Times, which isn't actually about who won that debate. It's about the amount of factual mistakes all the candidates made while they were setting out their proposals, especially when attacking the Democratic government. Some examples in there. The frontrunner Mitt Romney accused Obama of completely halting offshore drilling and invented federal restrictions on energy companies, which don't actually exist. Drilling in America is actually almost back to the same level that it was before last year's Deepwater Horizon spill, after which, of course, there was a brief moratorium imposed, but that's now long over. So that, the NYT says, is just not true. It points out virtually all the Republican candidates deny climate change, which it says is incredibly alarming, and all of them misrepresented the science during the debate. The Texan darling of the Christian right, Rick Perry, also said a few things which they say have no basis in fact. For example, he said the government can't fund Social Security, calling it a Ponzi scheme, when actually it's funded until 2037. And the paper also says he grossly exaggerated his job creation record as governor of Texas, saying he just can't take responsibility for the soaring population there, and he can't take credit for the gas and oil boom.
So Rick Perry, as you said there, the darling of the Christian right in the Republican fold. The Huffington Post seems to think there's still quite a few hurdles between him and the nomination.
It does indeed. The piece there calls him a master acquirer of power and a ruthless user of it. But they say he's got a few skeletons in his closet that might trip him up between here and the presidency. One of them is the number of policy U-turns he's made over the course of time. Other Republicans are likely to jump on the fact that in 1988 he backed Al Gore for the presidency and was at the time a Democrat. He then changed sides, of course, but he still continues to, they say, rewrite his political allegiances and his life story. And his strongly anti-federal spending stance doesn't really chime, they say, with a life story where he's spent most of it on the government payroll, first as an Air Force pilot and then as a senator. There's also the worry over whether he may, in fact, have condemned innocent people to the death penalty. At least one, he says he has no doubts over writing people's death warrants, but at least one person who was subsequently found innocent and had to be released.
That's interesting. But the competition looking problematic, but things for Obama are not looking too rosy, and his popularity is hitting really low levels in the polls right now.
It's really plummeting, so he's got to come out with something good in this job creation speech coming up later today. The New Yorker takes a look at the challenges facing him. They say he needs to win round disgruntled former supporters. They suggest he invest in infrastructure to get construction workers working again and start a project to get some of the young unemployed back to work. They say most of all he needs to create a convincing narrative to put up against those Republicans who say that all federal spending is bad. He needs to come up with a convincing argument to show that you've got to spend your way out of a recession, otherwise you won't create any jobs.
All right, now we're 3 days away from the 10th anniversary of the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Now, The Guardian has an article saying that some of the rescue workers who worked at Ground Zero may actually sue the US government. What's this about?
Well, these are the firefighters who've ended up with cancer as a result of all the toxic chemicals that were found at Ground Zero. This is something perhaps not most commonly known, that there were 90,000 litres of airline fuel there, 1,000 tonnes of asbestos and tonnes of other potentially toxic chemicals, which they say have given at least 52 people cancers, which have gone on to kill them in the intervening 10 years. Now, the federal funding for rescue workers, which helps them out with healthcare problems, doesn't help those who have cancer. It only is for physical injuries and those who've got breathing difficulties from breathing in the dust. So now there's a big campaign going on by those firefighters to try and get the federal government to pay for the healthcare costs of those cancer patients.
All right, Elena Casas, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.